When you have children in New Jersey, you pay child support. That's the basic premise of child support. So building off of that premise, there's certain deviations to consider. So the easiest child support case is when two parties' income are less than the net income threshold of the child support guidelines. What I just said is really complicated, but it's super easy. So basically, the child support guidelines is a calculator, and you plug in numbers of income. And so long as you have a net income lower than the threshold, you qualify under the child support guidelines. However, if you have an income that is higher than the threshold, or you have an extraordinary circumstance that requires a deviation from the guidelines, then we look at the child support statute, which again is a series of factors in which we take into consideration the facts and circumstances of your life to apply to what the support should be. Let's assume that you would fit within the child support guidelines, but there's some nuances that make the child support guidelines not really applicable to your family. What would those nuances be? If you have a child with extraordinary medical needs, you may fall outside of the child support guidelines. If you have a very talented child, you may fall outside of the child support guidelines. So if you have a child who's in theater or who performs in New York or who is a model, you may have expenses that the child support guidelines did not consider when coming up with the basic calculation. So when you want to know what the child support will be for your family, we would look at what is your income, what is the other child's parent income, what are any extraordinary expenses that may apply to your child, and do either of you have any other support obligations that have to be considered, such as another child, another alimony obligation, any other extraordinary circumstance that may come into play when calculating the final support for your child. I speak with a lot of people who are coming to New Jersey from another state asking about the maximum amount of child support or the percentage of income of child support. In New Jersey, neither of those scenarios apply. You are not going to be capped out on child support because support is for the child. So it's based on their need. It is not a percentage of income because, again, it is based upon the child's need. So when looking at the amount of child support to be paid in a circumstance where the guidelines do not apply, what we want to do is we want to prepare a budget for your child just like we would prepare a budget for you. So what is their housing expense? What is their food expense? What is their extracurricular expense? How much do you pay to board their pony? Things like that. That is all their need that comes into consideration. So it is not a flat number. It is not a capped number, nor is it a percentage number. It's going to be fact specific to your child's needs. Child support is modifiable based upon a substantial change of circumstance. So when you look at a substantial change of circumstance, you have to look at a long-term change. If you've lost your job, it's not going to change within the first week of losing your job. You're going to have a sustained period of unemployment in order for there to be a change. If you have a new job where your income goes up or down, that's a modifiable event. If your spouse has an income that goes up or down, modifiable event. If you have another child, modifiable event. If you get married and have a stepchild, not a modifiable event. If your child emancipates or moves into your home, there are a variety of factors that can modify child support and or terminate child support. But child support is the right of the child. So even if you think you should not be paying because of whatever issue is happening at the time, it's the child's right to support, and it has nothing to do with whether or not they're visiting you, whether or not you speak with them, whether or not they've cut you out of their life. It is the right of the child. If you are the payor of child support and you have missed some payments, there's a few ways this can be resolved. So first and foremost, I recommend to everyone that you at least make good faith payments towards your child support obligation, even if you can't pay the entire weekly or monthly amount. If your support is paid through probation, then probation may take on the role of enforcing the obligation. So it may not be your spouse that's going into court asking for you to pay the support. It might actually be probation that's doing it on their behalf. They can do this through an arrears payment where you pay a certain extra amount towards the amount you owe. They can do this through a lump sum payment. And in certain circumstances, when appropriate, the court can issue a bench warrant to compel you to make a payment as a condition of being released from jail. So if you are in a situation where you find yourself falling behind in child support, you should immediately contact us so we can talk about your best next steps to avoid really your worst scenario, which would be a bench warrant. If you are the recipient of child support and your support has fallen behind, meaning you have not been getting the child support that you are to receive for the benefit of your child, the options you have are to contact someone, whether it be probation if your support is paid through probation, or counsel to go in on your behalf to file an application for enforcement. In that application, you will ask for a myriad of things. You'll ask not only for payment, but for how to deal with the arrears and what would be the consequences if there was a continued violation of the court order. In New Jersey, the right to support is that of the child, meaning that regardless of the circumstances, whether you have 50-50 custody, whether you have a relationship with your child or not, whether you see your child or not, there is a support obligation. How much, from whom, depends on the circumstances of your family. If you have a child, a topic for your divorce or post-divorce changes is how you're going to address the calculation or modification of the child support award. If you need help with that calculation or whether or not you're entitled to a modification or termination, give us a call to see how we can help at Jersey Coast Family Law.